Hello to my Wellish friends. Today's episode is for anyone who's ever felt drained, stuck in their own head, or caught in a story about themselves that just isn't true anymore. Today's guest, Barbara Savin, has spent decades helping people rewrite those stories from the inside out. She's a Reiki master and teacher, energy healing specialist, clinical hypnotherapist, life coach, and the host of the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast. Basically, the person you want in your corner when your entire world feels like a mess. Barbara's worked with people through anxiety, stress, addiction recovery, relationship patterns, and those sessions where your energy is so depleted you barely recognize yourself. And what she does isn't surface level. It's deep, subconscious, identity level work, the kind that shifts how you see yourself and the life you think you're supposed to be living. This conversation is going to be honest, grounding, and very Wellish. It's about taking back your authorship of your story, choosing the lens you see yourself through, and reconnecting with the version of you that actually feels like you. Barbara, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to be on your show. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I have to pick your brain. I'm really excited because I don't know much about all of this kind of stuff, but I love it. So I'm excited to hear more about what you have to say.
Sure, let's go for it.
I want to start at the beginning. I want kind of the before story before you found this level of healing. So what was the story you were telling yourself before you discovered energy healing and hypnotherapy?
Well, boy, we need 5 hours, but
lay it on me. I'm ready.
I was born and raised in Coney Island. I grew up in the Marlboro Projects, which was not easy. My grandma was a healer, and she would do healing on my sister and I, and she would do, clear us with sage and cloves and all these things, which I didn't really understand at the time. But me as a child, I had a lot of, you could say, imaginary friends. And I could see spirit. I could feel them. I just knew if something was going to happen. And my mother would always tell me, who are you talking to? You need to stop this. They're going to put you in a psychiatric ward because people are going to think you're crazy. But my grandma would tell me, but she'd call me Babacita. She'd say, Babacita, you're not crazy. You're feeling these things. You're sensitive to energy. You can see, you can smell, you can hear. You have those abilities. And growing up in Coney Island in the 40s and 50s, 60s were not easy. And I could always see ahead of time. So say, for instance, in the schoolyard, all of a sudden I could see if someone did something, they would get hurt. So I would go over to them and tell them, oh, maybe you shouldn't do that because you may get hurt. They would do it anyway. They'd get hurt. They'd come over to me, beat the hell out of me.
What did you do to me? What witchy shit?
Exactly. And so, growing up, I had, my mother telling me, stop it. My grandma telling me, no, you can do this. And there was always this constant conflict in my head. And my sister was also very psychic, but she chose not to go that path. And God, growing up was really hard. So my other grandma taught me all about how to give of myself unconditionally. She would take us to help feed the homeless. She would take us, we would give clothes that we needed, but we would, volunteer to give, people some of our clothes. So there was, that love on that end, then the healer, and then my mom. So it was not easy. And I didn't, well, I'm going to tell you a little story here.
Please.
Right before, now I grew up with my grandma until I was 18 years old. My other grandma passed on right before my son was born, but my other grandma passed on, the healer, right before my high school graduation. 2 or 3 weeks prior to my graduation, I had this dream that my grandma died, my grandma Jenny, who was the healer. And I dreamt my mother buried her in her wedding gown, and I could see everything that happened. And then I woke up, and I said, "Oh God, this is just a bad dream." I'm thinking this because I can't wait for my grandma to come see me. I was graduating with honors, and I couldn't wait to get a job and give her everything she needed and wanted because I loved her so deeply. And so I had to get this dream out of my head, thinking that, oh, this is just make believe, like what my mother would tell me. And then 2 weeks later, we get a call at 2:00 in the morning that my grandma Jenny passed away. And now I'm thinking, oh my God, maybe my thoughts killed my grandma. And so I went through so much emotional, mental, physical, you name it. And I went through everything for the next 20 years.
Wow.
And I held on to that it was my fault that I killed my grandma because I had these powers that I could see, feel, everything that she told me, yes, you did. And now, mind you, I never told my mom that I saw this. But when my grandma was buried, my mother buried her in her wedding gown.
Get out.
So everything that I saw happened. And then I made the choice at that time. I was angry at God. I hated myself. I said, why did you make my dream come true? I'm not doing healing anymore. I'm stopping all this. And then I told those voiceless voices that would always speak to me, get away from me. I don't want to know from you anymore. Stop this. I'm done with you. And that's it. Then, of course, got married. Then my other grandma passed away right before my son was born. And that was another whole scenario. But real fast forward, I started getting very sick. I came down with chronic fatigue, raging migraines. And then I developed rheumatoid arthritis. And I remember the doctor telling me, "Oh, you're going to be crippled just like your mom," because my mother had rheumatoid arthritis and Parkinson's. And I looked at him. That's when the light bulb went on. And I said to him, how dare you tell me something like that? You're planting a seed in my mind that's going to grow, and then I'm going to end up with rheumatoid arthritis. And of course I left. And then my niece at the time, we were always into metaphysics. And so I took her to a crystal store and we saw a Reiki healing circle. And we decided, we had nothing to lose. Let's just go to this Reiki healing circle and see if they can help us. Because I wasn't well. I was actually falling apart on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Her and I went to this Reiki circle, and I'm sitting down, and the practitioners are doing healing on us. I start crying unconditionally. And I was hysterical. And then I realized, oh, this is something my grandma used to do for me. It felt so familiar. And that's when I decided, all right, let me just learn this and see how different it is. Well, I went through Reiki 1, 2, 3, Master. I took prana healing, you name it, and a healing touch, and I did it. But it wasn't like the way my grandma did it. And so then I finally started doing healing on myself every day. And the arthritis started easing up on me. The chronic fatigue disappeared, no more headaches. And I realized at that moment that God didn't take my grandma. It was a hard time to go. And that this was the choice that she made. She chose to leave this earth at the age of 62. And I had to forgive her for that because she died right before a very special day of mine. And I realized, okay, I needed to forgive her because she died. I definitely needed to forgive and God, because it wasn't him that took her from me. But most importantly, I needed to forgive me. I needed to get back to me, who I was. I needed to love myself and know that, I am worthy. I am enough being just me, just Barbara. And that's when everything just switched, everything turned around for me. And I went back a year later to this doctor and I said to him, oh, I guess I'm not crippled just like my mom. I had to prove a point to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's when everything changed. Everything changed for me. And I started then working at Islands Women's Medical. I worked at St. Vincent's Hospital. I then now threw myself into the energy healing. Prior to that, though, I was a regional sales director for General Nutrition Centers. 500 employees. I supervised all the boroughs, Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island. It was crazy making. But I made the choice after 15 years now to leave that job and to finally be me. And a lot of my friends, my family thought I had a nervous breakdown. But for the first time in my life, I actually found me. And that started a whole new world for me. And here I am, excuse me, today. Well, I mean, I'm now 77 and I'm still working and doing healing and everything. And I finally found my true purpose, my true path. And, life sometimes, man, causes us a lot of grief. And, it's like a roller coaster ride. There's a lot of downs and then there's ups and we don't know if we're spinning. But the whole purpose I feel in my heart was for me to see what I really needed to get back to doing. And that's exactly what I did. I'm sorry, I'm taking all this time.
No, I love it. No, please keep going. I think it's interesting that it's very much an identity shift. Like it very much shows how the story that we tell ourselves is so often unconscious until something forces us to kind of shift that narrative and rewrite it and identify with something different.
Yeah, it took me from the age of 18, I was 42 years old, I believe, when the shift finally happened. So I suffered, I want to say, for quite many years, a lot of years. But I made sure my children didn't have that same thing. So if they had different abilities, I went with it. I didn't, there was no clash. If they saw things or felt things, I believe you. I didn't have the, you're crazy and you're not crazy. So I was in total conflict a lot of the years of my life.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, when people come to you and they feel whatever it is that they're feeling, anxious, depleted, stuck, whatever, what do you think is the story that people are typically telling themselves at the root of it all?
Majority of the people that see me, we always have a conversation for the first half hour, 45 minutes, because they're having a challenge because of something that happened to them, most likely early in their childhood. And that's what we need to figure out, where it's coming from. They may think it's something now, but it's something that is deep rooted that needs to actually come out. They need to face it head on and then make the choice. Do I want to heal from it or remain a victim of it, you could say? Mm-hmm. And so, I see clients for all different stress, anxiety. Most of the problems or challenges, I say, are from them picking up other people's energies.
I was going to ask you that question.
Jen. Right. So as child, like my childhood, I definitely picked up other people's energies because I was I was an empath. I was very sensitive. Same. And so what happens is, we pick up other people's energies. Some are very good energies. Some are not very good energies. And we can't tell the difference if it's us or somebody else because they don't have that knowledge. They don't understand that. And when we pick up a lot of clients that come to me, they're very anxiety or they can't sleep. And the first thing I ask them is, are you sensitive to other people's energies? And they're not sure, but they know that when they're around people that's very emotional, they tend to feel that. And so that's happening, that energy is actually being absorbed into that person's aura. So many times, some of the feelings that we feel, like the stress, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, that's because we're not like that. We're picking up from other people's energies. So like, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask how you tell the difference.
Well, that's the thing is if you're fine, like say in the morning, right? You get up in the morning, you feel absolutely great. You go to work, then by the end of the day, now you're fatigued, you have a little bit of a headache, you feel like drained. You've picked up other people's energies. Mm-hmm. And so it's so important. And I know even for myself, to go to Costco or Trader Joe's or, the mall, before I step out of my car, I put myself in a protective light. I ask God, without religion associated with it, to shield me so that all the love, all the understanding comes in and out. But anything that doesn't serve me purpose, something that is not mine, to stay away from me. Just like we get up in the morning and we shower and we, dress ourselves, we need to do the same for our energy. It's important that we cleanse our energy on a daily basis. And I do that every morning in the shower. I ask, as I'm, taking a shower, I ask again, God, to cleanse me of any energies that may have attached to me that are not mine. And then I send them down the drain with love and light and healing. And if during the course of the day, sometimes, my clients are very overwhelming. And when they leave, I'll just sit in my chair and I'll say, all right, God, I'm asking you to shed your divine light and to just cleanse me, in a way like this, cleanse my aura and send it down to Mother Earth with love and light and healing. And then, of course, I step into a protective light again for the next person, because that next person, I don't want to pick up my energy and I don't want to, vice versa. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we identify who these draining people are, and I know it's the holidays soon, and the holidays are great, but it's also very draining because you have all different type of, drainers that come, you have the drama queen and you have the narcissistic person or the gossiper. So it's important to be aware of what other people are saying and doing, so that it makes us understand that we need to protect our energy at all costs, because our energy is sacred. Mm-hmm. That's really, this is the only house that we have to live in, is this is our temple. Yes. If we can't take care of this temple, hey, who's going to do it?
Yeah, 100%. And I like that I like that you say, with knowing other people and knowing that you have the capability to protect your own energy, that I think going in to a situation with those energy drainers, with that awareness, sets you up so much more for success than thinking that you're just at the whim of everybody else's energy and you have to respond to however. And it just isn't good.
Well, that's it. And, I even tell all my grandchildren, it's so important to set boundaries. It's okay to say no, because if you say yes and you really didn't want to say yes, you're going to be very upset with yourself. You're going to stress yourself out to no end. And then you're going to feel, why did I do this? So you got to set the boundaries, because you need to respect yourself for who you are. Mm-hmm. Because again, if you don't respect yourself for who you are, who's going to? Yes. So setting boundaries is so important.
Mm-hmm. I think when you hear that too, it's such a statement that is said so much, like you have to respect yourself, otherwise who else will? And then something happens that you're like, oh, I understand what that means now. And you don't ever let anybody cross that boundary again or disrespect you again.
Well, that's it. And I know in my life, I've had a lot of situations where I didn't set the boundaries. And not only did I not set the boundaries, but I didn't listen to that and that gut feeling, that intuitive feeling, that this, I'm feeling it's not right, but I'm still doing it. And then what happens? Everything goes wrong. And if we don't listen to that intuitive feeling, that gut feeling, God gives us choices. Our angels all give us choices. And I call them the voiceless voices that come in and speak to us. And we have a choice. Well, we can either listen to it or not listen. So for instance, say you're driving, and this happened to me so many times in my younger years, driving in the car, I'm lost. Now, back then, we didn't have Waze or GPS or anything like that. We only, we're lucky if we had a piece of paper to show us, where we were going. And so, the feeling would say, this feeling would say, go right. This feeling, the logical side, would say, no, go left. So, of course, we would listen to the list side. We'd go left and we'd say, I know I should have listened to the other way. So, again, it's all free will. It's all how you feel. It's the choices that we make. God, this happened to me 14 years ago. This is really bad. I worked at the Four Seasons Hotel at the California Health and Longevity Institute for 15 years. And I was working late, and then I said to my husband, why don't you meet me at the pizzeria and let's grab a slice of pizza. And mind you, back then, we had I think it was a BlackBerry phone. We just learned how to text. And I kept on hearing, Barbara, stop walking and texting. Stop walking and texting. And I said to myself, oh, God, stop. Come on now.
I'm fine.
I'm fine. Everybody does it. And I met him. And he was talking to me and I wasn't paying attention because I was texting and walking. I ended up falling over a cement slab, falling on my face. Now, mind you, as I'm falling, I could feel an angelic wing underneath me. And people came out. I was bleeding everywhere. I mean, it was really, really bad. The ambulance came, took me to the hospital, and they did CT scans, you name it, and they did it. My head was like this, a big lump. I had cuts everywhere, bleeding everywhere. And so the doctor comes in and she says, I have good news and I have bad news for you. And I said, well, give me the good news first. She says, the good news is you're not hemorrhaging from your brain and you didn't break your cheekbone and you just have a lot of bruises. And she says, and I looked at her, I says, can I just tell you something? Oh, wait. Then she says to me, and I said to her, well, can you tell me the bad news now? She's all right. The bad news is you severely crushed the right side of your nose and you're going to need surgery. And I looked at her and I says, as I was falling, I says, I know you're probably not going to understand this, but I could feel an angelic wing underneath me, protecting me. But I still needed to get hurt because I needed to learn the lesson. And she looked at me with this smile on her face and she says, well, they definitely protected you because if it was just a trifle over more, she says, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Wow. So I would have killed myself. So, and from that point on, I said, I will definitely listen.
I will not question it again.
I will not question, will not walk in text or and if I hear the voiceless voice telling me to do something, I will listen. Because again, I know it's free choice, free will. They can't stop you from hurting yourself, but they do give you those messages.
Yes.
They do.
That's a great point. So I'm just wondering, what are the biggest lies we tell ourselves about who we are? Because I feel like when that intuition is happening, that's what we're doing, right? It's we're trying to logic our way through everything, muscle our way through everything. Was that what you think? That how I don't know. I just feel like there's something weird going on there.
Yeah, for myself growing up, you're crazy, you're stupid, if you keep on thinking like this, you're not going to amount to anything. So even though my mother didn't mean that, but those seeds were still planted. And then as we get older, we think we're not enough, we're not worthy, we're not pretty, we're stupid, we're not able to do anything, nothing will ever be okay. We create that for ourselves. And I always tell my clients, especially with their children, please, you need to give those children's positive thinking, positive words, because you don't want to plant those little seeds that will eventually sprout into a very big tree. And then they'll think they're not worthy. They're not, they are stupid. They're this, they're that. And it's so important to think positive, even though we may not feel positive all the time, our subconscious mind, it can either help us or completely destroy us. And had I listened to that doctor when he said, you're going to end up just like your mother, crippled, I could have allowed that in my head if I chose to, but I chose to different. I said, no, I'm not going to listen to what he said, because it's somebody else's words saying something to me. It's not who I am. It's him telling me this. Mm-hmm. So it's so important to think positive and just know, you are enough. You are worthy. I always say every morning when I get up, Barbara, you're okay. I sit on my couch for a few minutes and I say, I am calm. I am happy. I am worthy. I respect myself. I love myself for who I am. Today is a great day. It may not be the greatest of all days, but if I wake up saying, oh God, I'm so tired, I can't believe this, another day, it's Monday morning, guess what? That day is going to start that way.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the greatest 100%. Of days.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy that the way we see ourselves isn't always the truth, because we just convince ourselves, because it makes sense in our head, because it's logic, that it's got to be the way that it is. But it's always, that inherited narrative, fear, depletion.
Well, that's identity. What it is. It's how you behave. It's how you think. I always say, never allow those wounds, those old stories, those emotional triggers to determine who you are. Don't be a victim of yesterday. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because if you stay in that victimhood, guess what? Nothing's going to change. You won't be able to get yourself out of. And that's why I help a lot of my clients. I look at them, I say, come on, what's happened yesterday, you can't change it. I can't change the fact that I fell and almost killed myself,
I just heard a quote today, which is so funny. One, because of what we're talking about. Two, because of the story you just told. But it said, you're a fool if you trip over something that's behind you. And I was like, okay, I like that.
100%. That's the truth. Because what's happened yesterday, learn by it, and say, okay, hopefully you understand, but it's happened and we can't change it in any way. All we have is right now. We don't even have tomorrow, because we don't know what today's going to bring. Just like I didn't know I was going to fall and almost kill myself, and I may not have had tomorrow. So all we have is this moment. So the thing is to live in the moment the best you can, be more aware of your surroundings, be mindful of everything. I always tell my clients, instead of complaining, maybe look out the window and look at the trees, look at the sky, listen to the birds, be in the moment, be grateful for that cup of coffee in the morning or that, the tea. Be grateful that you're taking a shower, you have water, be grateful that you have clothes on your back. Be grateful that you have a roof over your head and you have food. It's so important for us to understand that and not to live in yesterday. We can get out of yesterday if we make that choice to do so.
Mm-hmm. And it's bringing to the short term.
Right. I mean, I went through a lot in my years. I could have stayed a victim, but I chose not to. And even when I lived back east, even though I worked at Islands Women's Medical and in a hospital, I had friends that looked at me and said, oh God, what you do is just woo-woo. Well, that's how you feel. I feel completely different. So we have to not allow somebody else's emotions or words to become ours. I always say, like, I look at, my parents and I say, there's so much that they could have changed, but they chose not to. And so I would always say, God, I love them with all my heart and soul, believe me. But their journey was their journey. This is my journey. It's completely different, and I'm grateful that they brought me into this life. And yeah, I was supposed to go through everything that I've been through, but this is my journey. This is who I am. I'm not my mother. I'm not my father. I'm not my sister. I'm not even my children. I have children and grandchildren. This is their own lives. And we're brought into this world to get back to who we really are.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned your work. I want to know, for someone who's never done hypnotherapy, what actually happens in a session?
Well, number one, I don't control you at all. Again, your mind is a very powerful tool. People think that, a hypnotherapist controls you. No, we don't control you at all. It's all a matter of you putting you in a relaxed state, like, take you to a journey, say to the beautiful ocean, and we go through all the breathing techniques and have you really, really, really relax. And then all the things that you're looking to change, we then offer those suggestions to you. So in a very relaxed state, the subconscious mind is very open, because the subconscious mind does not know what's real or not real. So if we feed it negative thoughts, it thinks it's real. If you feed it positive thoughts, it thinks that's real. So the thing is, when you're in a very, very relaxed state, almost like sleep-like state, that's when you offer all those positive suggestions to somebody. And then consciously now, when they wake up, they can hear those positive words. And then they'll make the change. Then they make the choice to change. So, with hypnosis, again, it's just talking to the subconscious mind, very, very positive. And what I do is when they sit down with me, I have them write beforehand, what is it that they do? And what is it that they would like to do instead? And so all the I would like to do insteads, I use that into my script with them. So, if they tell me, God, I really need to stop drinking alcohol or stop smoking. Okay, well, what would you rather do instead? Well, instead of me drinking alcohol, I want to begin drinking water, and I want to know that I am, I don't need to relax in order to have a drink. And then, there's a lot more to that, but I'm just giving you examples. And that's what, on a subconscious level, those words are then put into that part of that brain. And then over time, especially it may take a few sessions, then they know, wow, I have the ability to reclaim my energy, to reclaim my power, to reclaim who I am. And then the whole thing is to put them back in their power and know that then they're not powerless. They can do anything they set their minds to do. And it's so important that they understand that, because if they don't, then they just stay in those, old habits and patterns, and nothing changes.
Well, that's actually what I was going to ask you. I want to know, how do subconscious beliefs keep people locked in the same story? Is it just because your subconscious believes whatever you feed it?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And the thing is to have those beliefs. It's important to say, you've had something happen to you as a child, and you believe, well, I need to, in order for me not to be raped, okay, I need to gain weight so I look, ugly. That's a subconscious belief. Mm-hmm. And so the thing is to get them out of that and know that you can be safe. You can be beautiful. Things won't happen to you again. You're aware of it. You're mindful of the situation. It's happened for whatever reason it needed to happen. But now you can make the choice to allow yourself to heal from those wounds and to move forward in a different way, so that you live your life filled with joy and happiness and beauty and everything else that your heart desires. So it's important to get rid of those things that happened to us in the past.
It makes me think,
with us.
Yeah, it makes me think that people think they're trying to change and like are trying to almost like slap a Band-Aid over what's happening and not going all the way back to the beginning and digging up the wound. Because it's funny that like the things that happen to us later in life that bring up all of those triggers is just very much following a pattern from whatever wound happened to you before. A lot of the time.
Well, the thing is, a lot of bad things happen to us to help us see what it is we no longer want. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they come back a few times because we didn't learn the lesson. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's like anything else until you finally realize, you know, I'm not a victim of this. I don't want this happening again. What is it that I need to change, you know, to make my life different and better? Otherwise, you're in the same pattern. And again, sometimes it's important to go back to see where you need to see it again, you know, and feel it on an emotional level in order to say, okay, I'm ready to let it go. I'm ready to, because there's a choice there. You can either, again, you know, live with it and, you know, and not let it go, or you can make the choice to say, all right, I'm done with this and I'm going to let it go because it doesn't serve purpose. You can't change what's happened yesterday. You just can't. And so it's important, you know, those childhood wounds, acknowledge them, thank them for whatever the situation was, okay? And say, all right, I'm sending you off with love and light and healing because you serve me no longer, you don't serve me purpose no longer.
I see you trying to protect me, but it's not working for me anymore.
It's not working, right? Because it's not protecting in any way. It's causing that person to just go down deeper and deeper into that emotional wound where they'll never be able to heal and to live a life filled with, you know, joy and happiness and everything else.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, amen.
It's a tough one, let me tell you. Sometimes they come back at me and I say, all right, okay, I see you. I got it. No more, please. But it keeps on coming back until you get it.
Until you get it, yeah. And then eventually you do, which makes me think of you falling and saying, like, I had the angel wing, but I still had to get hurt so I could learn that lesson. And now you're not listening, not listening to your intuition anymore. You know what I'm trying to say?
No. And, you know, it's life is hard. And, you know, I'm grateful for everything that I've been through. And, you know, it's funny. I lived in Brooklyn my whole life. And 21 years ago, we moved to California. And a few blocks from my house, they were building this beautiful Four Seasons hotel with a wellness institute. And my friends back east, I said, you know, I think I'm going to, you know, put my resume in, you know, to this institute. And I couldn't believe the negativity that came. They said, oh my God, you think you're going to really get that job, you know, as the energy healer and hypnotherapist at this beautiful luxury Four Seasons hotel? And I says, why do you say that? They don't want anybody from Brooklyn. You know, they want somebody worldly and, you know, knows and understands. And I said, that's where at that point, I said, well, you know, thank you, you know, and I ended the conversation very quickly. And I sat and I said, God, take those words, get them away from me, throw them on the ground. I'm stomping on them with love and light and healing because that's what they feel, not what I feel. Mind you, he interviewed a little over 100 people and I was the one that got the job.
Hell yeah.
And I think I got the job because of all the experience that I had back east. And also, I did a lot of volunteering for 9/11 because I was so grateful that my husband and my son came home. Thank you. A lot of people didn't. And so when Island Women's Medical, where I worked, she asked me if I wanted to go to the healing tents that were on the Staten Island side to offer energy healing to the, you know, firefighters, the first responders, and, you know, to help them clear some of this energy from them. And, you know, I realized that, wow, you know, the human, spirit is so powerful. Here was people that risked their lives and everything to help other people. And I did that for about a year. And I did that not because she asked me to. I did that because I was so grateful that my two came home that day. And my other grandmas, hearing her, you need to volunteer, you need to give of yourself. And that's exactly what I did. So not only did I volunteer at the tent on the Staten Island side for the first responders and firefighters, I was also asked to volunteer and do meditation for 350 teenagers that actually saw the planes hit the trade centers so that they can feel more safe. And then, of course, I volunteered for hospice, for HIV. Because of my gratitude that my two came home, I volunteered a lot. And I really feel in my heart all that volunteer work that I did. And when I went for that job at the California Health and Longevity Institute at the Four Seasons Hotel, he understood. Yeah, I was from Brooklyn. I don't speak great English. It's who I am, He understood. And I feel that's why he hired me.
I really like what you say about the seeds in your brain, like whether it's the words people say to you or it's the things that you've experienced, that you have to choose to let that go with love, light, and healing in order to not let it register within you. Because I feel like a lot of the time that's how our identity gets so created, when it's not necessarily who we have to be or who we are.
Yeah, exactly. And, I when I look back, and the thing is, when I finally got that job, I called my friends and I said, guess what? I got that job,
Absolutely. I mean, I'm seeing a pattern here, Barbara. The doctor and the friends.
There is a pattern. Believe me. It's trusting. It's who you are. If you're confident in yourself, I grew up not being confident, not being, I was afraid to speak. I was afraid to do a lot of things. But I realized, the fear it held me back. And what was I thinking? But, I was supposed to be held back with that fear in order for me to understand that I can let that go and not be that person from yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I feel like it's, I don't know, like that we're able to rewrite the way we view ourselves without being performative. Like, I think a lot of the time when we're trying to rewrite our story and like figure out who I am and do all these things, it's just like, so you trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. When you come to your intuition and you figure it out from the root, it's like, oh wait, this all just happens naturally. And I think that's really cool.
Well, yeah, sometimes, again, you need to make the choice to change. Otherwise, there won't be any change, you could say. So, I could have held on to all that's happened to me. And believe me, a lot has happened to me. I mean, we just, said a few little things, but
tip of the iceberg.
A lot has happened. And when I look back, I say, Barbara, be proud of yourself because you were able to let that go and not live in yesterday's, wounds, you could say.
Yeah, completely. What happens energetically when someone finally starts to speak honestly about their story, like identifies that root and is like, oh, okay, like this is the problem? What happens after that?
Well, we begin to heal. And then we begin to create a new version of ourselves. And it's the version that actually the soul was meant to come out. So, we come to this life. The soul needs exactly what it needs. The soul knows what you need to see, what you need to feel, what you need to understand. But of course, we're in a physical body, but we are energy beings in this body. And so what happens is when you finally understand what it is, again, that you need to let go of, is when you find your true purpose and your passion. Now, I know for myself, had I not had all these other things happen to me, I don't know where I would be, to be quite honest. But in my heart, I know that having a grandma who was a healer, and her mother was also a healer, and the other grandma who was always volunteering, that was part of my journey. But it was very challenging for me to understand that until I went through the hardships and the wounds and all the crazy making stuff in order for me to say, okay, this is what my soul, this is who I'm supposed to be. And it's hard to understand the truth beneath someone's energy. Sometimes we try very hard to get back to our strength, our clarity, to recognize those patterns that drain us, and those wounds that shape, you could say us. But it's so important to understand that there is that light that is truly within us, and we just need to allow it to shine.
Yeah. I think it's scary. Like there's this big fear that like admitting that this is wrong with you, for lack of a better word, or like that this is the root. If you look it in the face, you lose control.
Well, we think we lose control, but in actuality, we're not losing control at all, because we're recognizing that we're more than just physical bodies, and, we're vibrational things. So what we say, is either of low vibration or, of high vibration. And, to be constantly influenced by other people's thoughts or feelings or the environment or relationships, it just makes you lesser of who you're supposed to be on this earth. So it's so important to say, I keep on saying, you need to say positive words to yourself.
I was going to ask how do you think, what is the best way to overcome that fear?
My father used to always tell me, women should be at home pregnant and not working.
Love that.
In a way, I'm very grateful he was like this to me. He was a male chauvinist. Dad, I know you hear me, but he's somewhere up there with my mom dancing. He was a male chauvinist, and I understand that. But he made me strong. And I would look at him and say, I'm free to be me, and I will be me. And that would really get him upset. But I'm grateful that he told me, women should be at home. Now, I could have listened, and make different choices, but I was very strong-willed and determined to show him you're wrong. And I think many times, because if people put labels on us, that's their label on us. That's not who we are. So in my case, I wanted him to see he was wrong. And then I became, in my years, I became, what I said before, a regional sales director for GNC. And I was the #1 region in all of the United States for 3 consecutive years, just to show him, I can do this. Your words meant nothing to me unless I allowed them to.
100%. Again, I'm seeing that pattern. Like, I like that you take what's happened to you, or you take words and you use them as fuel in order to better yourself. I'm curious, how do we stop telling ourselves those same recycled stories that we give ourselves or that other people have put on us?
We have to make the choice to change.
Yeah.
I'm very big on giving my clients affirmations. And I tell them, affirmations, it's not woo-woo. It's not crazy making.
Affirmations are crazy. I thought they were woo-woo for so long. I do them all the time now, life-changing.
They're life-changing, and it changes the way we think about ourselves. I remember my grandma would tell me, Babacita, look in the mirror and say, Barbara, I love you. And I would say, but Grandma, I really don't love me. No,
It's crazy.
Look
It's
crazy. Right.
You can't even look yourself in the eye when you first start.
Exactly. And I would look in the mirror and say, oh, Barbara, I love you. I would do it because she told me to do it. Okay. And then one day I actually looked in the mirror and in my eyes and I said, you know what, Barbara, I really do love you. Something shifted because it was the way my mind was now thinking that I deserve to be loved. I am loved. So, affirmations are very important. You say them in the morning. I tell myself, today's a great day, even though it may not be a great day. A few days ago, it poured rain here and I had to cancel 3 podcasts and a client because we had no electricity.
No.
So was it a great day? It was a lousy day, But, I said, okay, you know what? God just doesn't want me to do these 3 podcasts. There has to be a reason for it. I'm not supposed to see this client today. So we have to understand that things happen not to upset us, which, in that case, it drives us crazy because we think everything's going wrong. But there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Just like, you get up in the morning and you're driving and all of a sudden you're in a massive traffic and you say, oh, God, look at the time. I can't believe this, and you're stuck in the car. And then, you pass an accident. That could have been you in that accident had you left 10 minutes early. So everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
What's the real difference between who you were and who you're actively trying to become? Because I think that I don't love the mentality that lacks self-compassion. I like when people say you have to let the old version of yourself die because they don't serve you anymore. I resonate with that. I do get that. But at the same time, I don't like the idea of not being compassionate to that person and knowing that you were exactly who you needed to be at the time you were that person. So what do you think is the difference between who that old version of you is and who you're becoming, and how do they merge?
I think that's a good question. I think I realized that I wasn't all that emotion and the thought and the mind, that I was just the soul. And I don't know if that makes sense.
100% that makes sense.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, I know, in my heart, I've always been like a divine being, and that little Barbara, the scared Barbara, decided, all right, I can stay that way, but then I'll never get anywhere if I stay that way. And so I made the choice to change. I realized that, I am a child of God. I am connected to God, again, without a religion associated with it. And that I had a different purpose here on earth. And I chose who I am now. In a sense, I shouldn't say I chose it. Well, actually, I did choose it because I think when I came down into earth, I was a healer in other lifetimes, and I was killed as a healer because I've had dreams about that. And so I made the choice this lifetime to be safe. And God made it that way. It gave, the first, 40 years were, man, they were really tough, because I didn't get back into who I was. And then when I came here to California is when I finally felt safe enough to say, this is who I am. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, 1,000% it does. I like the idea that you're not your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. You're your soul.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
That's who we are, We're spiritual beings in this physical body, and as I said before, this is the only temple that we have to live in. And either you take care of it and eat healthy. And, I don't drink, I don't smoke. A lot of my friends, when we go out, they say, oh, just have a drink. No, I won't do that. And there are reasons for me not drinking or smoking. because I don't want to call in other energies into my aura, because I see what happens when people drink a lot. They change, and things get a little out of control. And that's because there are other entities that actually come into you while you're drinking. And I don't smoke because I just don't like to. My mother and father, they drank and they smoked, but that didn't mean I had to. I just didn't want to. My grandmas didn't though, but, yeah, it's, I forgot the question. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't think there was one at that point. We were just talking. I am curious, like, with what you said, I know you touched on it briefly, but I would like to talk a little bit more about victim mentality. Like, how does someone shift from that victim role to being more of like the author of their story, the narrator of what's happening?
Well, it's happened to them for a reason. I know I was molested when I was 12 years old. And I could have stayed in that molestation. I did tell my father, and my father beat the hell out of this person. Even though this person told me not to say. So yeah, I could have not said, but I didn't want to give him power over me, which he already had, but I didn't want to give him any more power. And so instead of being a victim of that situation, I chose differently. And then ironically, many, many years ago, and I kept on, over all those years, I kept on saying, all right, I forgive this person. I accept the fact that, he did what he did. It happened. I can't change it. And I didn't want to stay in that victim mentality. And lo and behold, many, many years later, who do I see? Is that person.
No way.
And I said to myself, okay, I have a choice here. I can choose to, even though I forgave him and accepted the fact, what he did, I can choose to be angry at him, or I can choose to go over to him and say, you know what, I forgive you. And he saw me, he's now walking towards me. And in my mind is like going absolutely insane, because now I'm not knowing what am I going to do, except I said to myself, Barbara, just stay in your power, stay in your energy. Don't give yourself up, in any way. And he came over to me and said that he was sorry. And I looked at him. I says, well, I'm grateful that you said you're sorry, because I forgave you many, many years ago. And, he said, unfortunately, I was just stupid and I didn't know what I was doing. And I really apologize.
Wow.
So that gave me closure. But in a sense, also, I knew all those years, I let it go. I could have stayed in it if I chose to. So we don't want to be a victim of things that have happened to us in the past, because then how can you possibly grow and enjoy life and enjoy everything that is around us if we stay in that mentality? And, was it hard? Of course it's hard at the age of 12 to have somebody, molest you and hurt you in any way. But yeah, I could have stayed that. And as I grew up, in the back of my mind said, this man hurt me. He did this, he did that. But I chose not to because it was his choice to do that. It wasn't my choice. Unfortunately, I was in the wrong place in the wrong time. And so, nothing has ever happened to me again, because I'm more, at 12 years old, are you mindful and aware? Not really, but I know, like with my grandchildren growing up, I always told them, be mindful and aware of your surroundings. Put that phone down, because that phone takes you away from your awareness. And then if something happens to you, now you become a victim of that situation, because I don't want to say actually caused it on yourself, but you weren't mindful and aware of your surroundings. And so it's so important to not allow yourself to be that victim. And many times I have clients that come to me that have been raped or anything. And I tell them that's happened to you. You can't change it. Just know that, again, don't put yourself in a situation where something like that can happen again. Just mindfulness.
I love the perspective of this happened and having that acceptance and then just moving forward from there. Like moving, I think you get stuck in the victim mentality when you're trying to analyze it and figure it out and understand why that happened and how can I heal from it and what could I do to repair it and how does this make me show up in situations in new ways now. Like, it happened. We have to accept that it happened. And I think that's the only way that you can start to move out of that victim mentality.
Well, it's the only way, because if you think and breathe every single moment of it, you're going to cause so much stress, anxiety. You're going to be overwhelmed.
Right,
You're not going to think clearly. Your life is going to be garbage, because you're staying in that situation. And so it's so important. And let me tell you, it's not easy. It's not, no one ever said it's not easy at all. But healing was never meant to be healing. Healing was meant for you to shed, just like a snake sheds. Guess what? We shed also those layers and layers of garbage and stuff that has happened to us in the past. And then we come out so much lighter and say, okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was. I'm able to get over this. We have to shed. We have to shed the old, because if you don't, nothing, again, I hate to say the words, but nothing's going to change.
Right. I like that a lot. I was going to ask you what a reframe was to get out of the victim mentality. Would you say it's the shedding?
Clearing out the old energy. Just let it go. Let it go with love and light and healing, and say, all right, it doesn't serve me purpose no more. I refuse to stay in that situation because that happened then. Today's a new day. Today's a new day. Enjoy yourself. Be in the moment for today. Because we again, you don't know what's going to happen an hour from now.
Right. It feels very much like giving yourself permission to evolve, like that you get to choose your narrative intentionally.
I always say I give myself permission to heal. When I had my hip replacement, I said, all right, God, all right, this was meant to be, I was meant to go through this pain, because then I'm able to help people, because I understand, pain and trauma a little differently. Okay. And I said, I give myself permission to heal. I give myself permission to feel the pain, so that I can now heal that pain and not stay in that pain. Because if you do, nothing, again, nothing will change. Your life stays the same. And then, you're in that mentality, and that energy, and you don't allow yourself again to shed what doesn't serve your purpose no longer.
Totally. So for somebody that has low energy or is operating in that lower negative vibration, what is the first small step that you would recommend to start to shift out of it?
I would say just to love yourself and respect yourself. Love yourself, respect yourself for who you are. I don't care what you've done in the past. I don't care what just know that you deserve to respect yourself. If you can't respect yourself first, no one else is going to respect you. If you can't love yourself first, no one else is going to love yourself. If you can't, tell yourself that you deserve, happiness and joy, because it's your birthright. We were brought into this earth to live a life filled with joy and happiness and have everything that our heart desires. But then things happen to us and it completely shifts. So, respect, I would say, is probably, the number one thing, and to come, to live your truth and to come from your strength, and don't allow anybody to take your energy away or to take who you are away from you.
It's a good first step too, because I think that we hear that and we think like, okay, I can do that. I respect myself now. I love myself now. But it is such a process. And like you said, it's hard. And so it takes time. So being able to just put all your focus on that.
I'm 77 years old, and let me tell you, I'm still going
Still
through
working
stuff.
on it. Yeah.
Still working on it, But I learned along the way, and I say, okay, it's okay, Barbara. It's okay if you fail. Because you know what, you failed, but now understand. All right, what is it that I need to do different? So it's all about making different choices, and again, not allowing yourself to stay in that pattern, that energetic pattern, and again, to empower yourself, to reclaim your energy, your power, who you are, because that is so important. We're all born, we all come here, with a superpower, you could say. Everybody has intuition. Everybody has the ability, to heal. Everyone has that ability, to set the boundaries and to empower yourself. But then it's how you go, on your life and do it. No one is different. We're all, we're all children of God or divine, or whoever you want to, say. And, we've come to this earth, to get back to who we are and to make this earth, this world a better place to live in. So it's important to do the best that you can, and be a good person, help other people. If you see somebody suffering, go over and help them. I was online a few days ago in the supermarket, and there's a whole bunch of people. There's this, very elderly person, like probably in her late 80s. And I could see she's, going through her change, and, waiting for my husband. He's online, and everybody is, they're like, come on already. Yeah. And I'm looking at her, and she didn't have much on her there. She had maybe a few bananas and apples, not a lot of stuff. And I just looked, and I said to myself, my God, look how impatient they are, because she's trying to pay for her food. And so I walked over, and I used my debit card, and I paid for it. And she told me, oh, no. And I said, no, it's okay. Just, we're good. We're good. And the cashier looked at me, and she said, oh my God, that was such a beautiful thing to do. I said, no, it was something somebody should do. If you see somebody struggling, help them. Don't just watch them
sit there
struggle.
and watch and get angry.
Right. And get angry that, oh my God, look at this, look at the time. Give her $1 or $2, or help her do something, and that's what I feel that this world needs to do. Is we need to be more compassionate. We need to be more understanding, and we need to get off this stupid phone. I mean, I hate to say it, but
no,
all this social media is driving. It's not real. It's not real. It's all made up stories. And I think it's made up stories for us to see and think this is who we want to be. No, you're who you want to be, because who you're meant to be. And just get back to it and show some kindness and love and understanding, and just be a better person. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I know I'm chatting away.
No, you're great. I think with the phone thing is very real, because there's just not only is it fake, like you said, it's the highlight reels, all the things, but it's just like this tons of information just being shoved down your throat. You don't know what to listen to. You don't know what's right. So I'm curious. And I think a lot of the time people choose their healing practices from influencers and like what they see on the internet, because they've created this like beautiful reality that isn't real, and then feed you these ideas, this advice that this is how you're going to become the person you want to be. So I'm wondering if you have good practices that people can use to realign their story with the person that they want to actually become.
Well, I think, like I sometimes I look at the phone just to see what's happening. And I see a lot of fake, people, and they're making all this money. They're getting all these likes, but what are they doing? It's not real. And they're putting out fake, knowledge. And I say it like for myself, and for everybody else, have that ability to see, to feel, to understand the truth, beneath somebody's energy? What are they actually saying? And, is this going to really help you in any way? Is this going to make you authentic, or you need to recognize those patterns that you see. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for you. Maybe you need to sit back, you need to meditate a little bit, ask. My grandma would tell me, Babasita, all you need to do is ask and to sit in silence, and those messages will come. So I think
quickly a lot of the time.
Oh, they come very quickly. And I sit here many a times and ask. That's how I got the name, the Spiritual Warrior Coach Podcast. Mm-hmm. So, I asked, and there came that name. And of course,
I said,
right? Yeah. And I said, oh, do you really think it's, and I questioned it, because I said, do you really think it's available? And I heard, just look. And of course, I went on the internet, and lo and behold, it was available. So I think we need to be more mindful of those voiceless voices that do speak to us, that show us what it is that we need to hear and feel and see, not necessarily what all this social media stuff is all about.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely making that asking a practice, because that is very true. I feel like when anything that's ever gone wrong in my life, I can look back, and in hindsight, I know that there were little nigglings or like voices that were trying to speak to me, the thoughts I had. And I didn't even acknowledge them at the time. So you don't even register that they're your intuition. But when you get quiet and you ask yourself the question, you got your answer.
And I tell my clients all the time, just sit. It doesn't have to be for 10 hours. It could be just for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Just sit and ask your question and listen. It may not come right away. It may come, somebody may tell you something, and all of a sudden a light bulb goes on.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. Or you may turn on the radio and there's music, or, you see something written, or you may go to Barnes and Noble and open a book, and there's, what you need to see. Everything is there for us to see, to feel, to trust. All we need to do is listen. That's what this is all about, is listening and not being a victim, and understanding and getting back to who we really are. What were you made to do? What were you brought here to do in this lifetime? And I'm telling you, as a life coach, as a healer, as a hypnotherapist, the journey is not meant to be easy. Not meant to be easy. It's meant for us, again, to shed those layers, to finally get back to our purpose.
And I feel like you shed them when it's not easy.
Believe me, I'm still shedding. So.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And I say, gee, I went through a lot now. Can we stop the shedding?
Yeah, please. Can I just relax? I'd appreciate it. I'm 27 and I feel that way. I know I got a while ago.
Right? Well, you have a long way to go. Yeah. But, there are times I sit back, I relax, and I say, okay. And then there are times that, it comes right back. It mirrors me right back again. And I say, okay, I guess, there was something else in this, in the universe that I needed to learn.
Yeah, totally. So to wrap us up, I like to ask my guests a series of rapid fire questions. I call the game Kind of Toxic, Kind of Well, because what it is questions that highlight your humanness, just to show that our guests that typically seem to have it all together still have those challenges. But a lot of the time, because you're so healed, you get pretty good answers. So if you're down to play, I've got 8 rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. What or who are you jealous of right now?
Honestly, I'm not.
I love that.
I'm not jealous. I go into people's beautiful, 20,000 feet mansions and stuff, because I do a lot of celebrities, and a lot of my friends say, oh my God, you go into all these mansions. Are you jealous? Absolutely not. I'm happy for them. This is what they've chosen, and this is who they are. I'm good. And I'm happy coming back home to my 1,800 square foot home. This is what I'm supposed to have. So yeah, I'm being very truthful and honest now.
I believe you.
Yeah, I am not jealous. I'm not jealous. No.
That's amazing. This is what I'm supposed to have. I love that. That's a good answer. What's a moment recently where you caught yourself ignoring your own needs or choosing yourself instead? Either one. Either not choosing or choosing.
I think the other day when I did too many clients and I knew I needed to rest. I said to myself, why did you take that last person? You know, you needed to stop it. You know, you felt bad. I guess I didn't set my own boundaries. So yeah, I guess that's, yeah. I hope they're not listening. Or they may not know who was the last one, so it's okay.
Yeah. What do you find yourself overthinking about these days?
Who's going to be my next guest for my podcast?
Ooh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I'd have to say that. And I have no concerns about clients or anything because I know God has always given me what I'm supposed to have and what I need at this moment. So
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
What is a should, like an expectation you've put on yourself that you've let go of, or one that you know you still need to?
I should lose weight.
That's a good one.
Yes, I should lose weight. I'm not really overweight in any way, but I know I need, you know, I had parathyroid surgery 2 years ago, and from that I actually gained 10 pounds. So I know I should lose the weight and be a little more active. And I have to say, yeah, I need to get on my treadmill a little more.
Mm-hmm. What's something that makes you quick to get annoyed or angry?
My husband.
Good answer.
We're married 56 years. We know each other 61 years.
I love that.
I have to say my husband. When he sits and watches TV for like 2 hours, I look at him and say, this is all you have to do with your life?
Literally, what are you, love?
What are you doing? Couch potato? So yeah. That you got me there.
That's a good one.
It's him.
What's a toxic thought you still catch yourself believing?
Toxic thought. So I have to say sometimes, not all the time, just maybe once in a blue moon that I'm still not good enough. Mm-hmm. And then I tell myself, no, you are good enough. Just stop it. Stop thinking that way. So, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's a wellness rule or trend you don't buy into?
Well, I don't believe in taking any injections like the flu shot or the COVID shot or anything like that. Mm-hmm. I'm very much into supplements, eating healthy, drinking water. The wellness, I see a lot of, you know, all these injections with losing weight and all this. All this stuff, you know, I need to research before I do anything. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. If you could leave my wellish friends with one piece of advice on becoming more well than toxic, what advice would you give them?
To just love yourself and respect yourself. You know, eat healthy, go for that walk, meditate a little bit, even for a minute or two, sit in silence. It's okay to be just by yourself. It's okay to just appreciate who you are.
I love that. Where can people find you? Where can they work with you?
Well, I'm in California, in Southern California. I have an office in Westlake Village. I no longer work at the Four Seasons Hotel. The California Health and Longevity Institute went out of business. Unfortunately, I lost my job after 15 years from COVID. And so I have my own office now in Westlake, and they can look me up at barbarasavin.com and listen to me, the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast on Apple, Amazon. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Not all the time, periodically. But if you just go to barbarasavin.com, and you can find me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Barbara, for being here. This was really insightful.
Well, thank you so much. It was an honor being on your show. Thank you so much.
Of course.